The void was not empty. It was trembling. It wasn't the trembling of fear, nor the aftershocks of the Tournament of Power's violent conclusion. It was the shivering of reality itself, bending under the weight of a presence too vast to be comprehended by mortal eyes. Super Shenron, the golden dragon of the gods, coiled through the dark expanse, his scales spanning galaxies, his eyes burning like twin suns against the nothingness. Son Goku stood upon the singular floating fragment of the arena, his body broken, his gi tattered, yet his spirit burning with that familiar stubborn exhaustion. He had won. Android 17 had made the wish. The universes were returning. But as the Grand Priest spoke the final dialect of the gods to dismiss the beast, something ancient snapped, a fracture in the ritual. A single drop of the golden dragon's essence, pure, unadulterated creative force, did not dissipate into the cosmos. It fell, a heavy, molten teardrop of emerald and gold light dripping from the dragon's jaw. It did not hit the floor. It sought a vessel. It sought the one creature in the multiverse whose container was shattered enough, whose limits were broken enough to receive it. It struck Goku's chest. There was no scream. There was only a sound like a bell tolling at the end of time. Goku's eyes rolled back. The silver of Ultra Instinct forcibly bled out by a torrential, primordial green. His back arched, vertebrae cracking under the pressure of a star collapsing. For a moment, the Omni Kings stopped their cheering. The Grand Priest froze. Beerus stood up, his face drained of color, whispering a single word that no destroyer should ever have to speak in fear. Zalama! This is not merely a new form. This is the rewriting of a soul. To ensure you witness the path where the Saiyan transcends the hierarchy of angels and enters the domain of the creators, anchor your presence here. Like the video and bind yourself to this timeline before it fades into myth. The light of the Super Dragon did not fade gently. It retracted with the violence of a collapsing star, folding itself back into the golden spheres that hovered like silent judges over the void. The wish had been made. The erasure was undone. The multiverse breathed again, a collective gasp of trillions of lives pulled back from the precipice of non-existence. But amidst the jubilation, amidst the cheers of the Omni Kings that echoed like wind chimes in a hurricane, a singular, terrifying silence was blooming in the center of the shattered arena. Son Goku lay on his back, staring up at the purple abyss of the world of void. He should have been unconscious. He should have been drained. His body a hollow shell after the ravages of Ultra Instinct and the brutal war of attrition against Jiren. But he was not empty. He was overflowing. The sensation was not pain, at least not in the way a punch or a blast of ki inflicted pain. It was heavy. It was the sensation of the ocean trying to fit inside a thimble. That singular drop of molten emerald, the runoff of Zalama's essence, had burrowed past his skin, past his muscle, and fused directly into the core of his spirit. It felt ancient. It felt like the ground beneath the feet of the gods. Goku clutched his chest, his fingers digging into his tattered gi, his knuckles white. He tried to breathe, but the air tasted like metal and ozone. Kakarot? The voice was distant, filtered through a ringing in Goku's ears that sounded like a choir of deep, resonant bells. Vegeta stood over him, his own body battered, one eye swollen shut. The prince reached out a hand, expecting the usual grin, the usual idiocy of his rival, laughing off a near-death experience. But Goku did not take the hand. He didn't even see it. Goku's eyes were wide, fixed on something invisible. His pupils, usually stark black, were trembling, rimmed by a thin, flickering corona of green light. It was a shade of green that Vegeta had never seen, not the artificial teal of a blast, nor the legendary lime of the berserker form. This was the green of deep jade, the color of things that grow in the dark. Don't touch him! The command cracked like a whip. Beerus, the god of destruction, landed beside them, his boots skidding on the rubble. His fur was bristling, his ears pinned back against his skull. There was no trace of his usual lethargic arrogance. He looked at Goku not with concern, but with the primal wariness of a predator spotting a larger beast in the brush. Lord Beerus? Vegeta withdrew his hand, confused by the genuine panic in the destroyer's voice. It's just exhaustion. He overdid it with that silver form again. That is an exhaustion, Beerus hissed, his tail twitching nervously. Step back, Vegeta! Step back now! Whis descended from the floating spectator stands, his staff tapping gently against the stone. The angel's face remained composed, but his eyes, usually filled with whimsical amusement, narrowed as they swept over Goku's convulsing form. He sensed it immediately. The signature was faint, buried under the layers of mortal exhaustion, but it was unmistakable to an angel. It was the hum of the Super Dragon Balls. It was the resonance of the Creator. Oh my, Whis murmured, the sound barely audible over the ambient rumble of the void. It seems our victory has come with an unforeseen tax. Goku gasped, his back arching violently off the ground. A pulse of energy, heavy, dense, and suffocating, erupted from his chest. It didn't explode outward, it pressed downward, crushing the rock beneath him into fine dust. The gravity around them multiplied instantly. Vegeta's knees buckled. Even Beerus felt the tug, his feet sinking inches into the stone. It wasn't the sharp, piercing pressure of God, Ki. It was the crushing weight of existence itself. Goku! Krillin's voice cried out from the distance, but it sounded like he was shouting from underwater. Goku couldn't answer. Inside him, the landscape of his soul was being rewritten. He tried to reach for his own energy, to find the familiar warmth of his ki, but it was gone, or rather, it was being eaten. The golden droplet was a parasite of absolute power, consuming his mortal energy and replacing it with something colder, sharper, and infinitely more potent. He felt as though he were swallowing the sun. Is this dying? Goku thought, the words fracturing in his mind. No, death is quiet. This is loud. He forced his head to turn, locking eyes with Whis. He wanted to ask for help, to ask what was happening, but when he opened his mouth, no sound came out, only a low, guttural vibration that shook the dust around them. It sounded like the growl of a beast waking up from a billion-year slumber. We must leave, Whis said, his voice cutting through the tension. Now, the Grand Priest is preparing to close the void. If Goku remains here in this state, resonating with the residual energy of the ritual, he might very well tear the fabric of the dimension apart. Tear it apart? Vegeta grit his teeth, fighting the gravity to stand upright. He can barely move. He isn't doing it, Beerus muttered, sweat beading on his forehead as he watched the green light pulse beneath Goku's skin. It's doing it to him. Grab him, Whis. Put him in the cube. If he explodes here, he takes us all with him. The journey back to Universe 7 was a blur of warped light and terrified silence. Usually, the cube was a place of chatter, of Bulma asking questions and Trunks boasting of victory. But now, the Z-fighters huddled at the edges of the transparent vessel, giving a wide berth to the center where Goku lay. He was shivering. Steam rose from his skin, smelling of sulfur and ancient stone. Whis sat cross-legged beside him, his staff hovering over Goku's chest, weaving a barrier of temporal energy to dampen the output. But even through the angel's barrier, the pressure leaked out. It made the air inside the cube taste metallic. It made Piccolo's antennae twitch uncontrollably. It made the hairs on the back of Gohan's neck stand up, triggering a primal flight response that the half-Saiyan couldn't suppress. They were bringing a champion home. But as the stars of Universe 7 came into view, swirling in their familiar patterns, no one felt like they were carrying a hero. They felt like they were transporting a bomb, and the timer was ticking down in a language none of them could understand. The descent to Earth was silent. The cube dissolved into the manicured lawns of Capsule Corporation, the shimmering barrier fading to reveal the soft, familiar blues of a West City afternoon. The air smelled of cut grass, and the distant salt of the ocean scents that usually triggered a ravenous hunger in Goku, a signal that the fighting was done and the feasting could begin. But today, the scent of Earth made him nauseous. It felt thin. It felt like breathing through a straw. Bulma was there before they even touched the ground, her face a mask of relief that shattered the moment she saw the group's somber procession. She stopped shouting orders at the chefs and froze. There was no victory pose. There were no thumbs up. There was only Piccolo and Vegeta, struggling to support Goku's weight between them. their boots sinking inches deep into the pristine soil with every step. "What happened?" Bulma whispered, her hands flying to her mouth. He won, didn't he? Android 17 made the wish. He won." Vegeta grunted, the veins in his neck bulging as he adjusted his grip on Goku's arm. But he didn't come back empty-handed. They lowered Goku onto a waiting medical stretcher, but the metal frame groaned in protest, buckling slightly in the center. It wasn't that Goku had gained physical mass, it was his presence. The density of his existence had spiked. It was as if a dwarf star had been wrapped in Saiyan skin and dropped onto the lawn. Goku stared up at the sky. It looked like paper to him now, fragile, terrible paper stretched over a void of infinite gold. He blinked, trying to clear the hallucination, but the image persisted. The dragon key was not just sitting in his chest, it was rewiring his optic nerves, forcing him to perceive reality through the lens of a creator, not a mortal. He saw the structural weaknesses in the atoms of the air. He saw the inevitable decay of the buildings around him. "Get him inside," Whis instructed, his tone lacking its usual playfulness. "Do not use the standard medical machines. They will explode. Just place him somewhere quiet. Somewhere sturdy." They moved him to the gravity chamber. It was the only room in Capsule Corp reinforced enough to handle the passive pressure radiating from his body. As the heavy blast doors hissed shut, sealing Goku inside the stark white silence, the Z-Fighters let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they were holding. Outside the chamber, Vegeta leaned against the wall, arms crossed, staring at the digital readout on the door. The sensors were going haywire, flashing error messages about undefined energy signatures. "Whis," Vegeta said, his voice low. "What did you mean by unforeseen attacks? What is inside him?" Whis tapped his staff on the floor, looking pensively at the sealed door. "You saw the golden dragon, Zalama. He is not a fighter, Vegeta. He is a fundamental constant of the multiverse. He is the weave of reality itself." When the wish was granted, the connection remained open for a fraction of a microsecond too long. The angel turned to face the Prince of Saiyans, his violet eyes serious. "Goku has absorbed a fragment of the dragon's creative will. It is a power that creates stars, designs galaxies, and breathes life into dust. It is not meant for a warrior. It has no concept of fighting. It only knows being. And right now, that absolute state of being is conflicting with Goku's mortal limitations." "Will it kill him?" Krillin asked, stepping forward, his voice trembling. "It is trying to expand him," Whis corrected. "To make room for itself. The vessel must grow, or it will shatter." If Goku cannot harmonize his Saiyan instinct for battle with the dragon's instinct for dominion, yes, it will burn him into nothingness. Inside the chamber, Goku lay on the floor. He couldn't stand. The gravity was set to 1G, but it felt like 500. He closed his eyes, seeking the darkness of sleep, but there was no darkness. There was only the golden void. And in that void, he heard the first whisper. It wasn't a voice speaking Japanese. It was a vibration in his marrow, a concept translating itself into thought. Little vessel, the resonance hummed, feeling like magma moving through his veins. "Why do you struggle? Why do you cling to the smallness?" Goku gritted his teeth, sweat pooling beneath him. Son Goku," he gasped, forcing the words out into the empty room. A Saiyan! From Earth!" The energy surged, a spike of emerald heat that made his back arch off the floor. The gold aura flickered around him, dense and jagged, cracking the reinforced tiles of the gravity chamber floor without touching them. "You were," the whisper corrected, sounding amused and terrifyingly ancient. "But the container is broken. The walls are down. You are the chosen. Stop fighting the current, Saiyan. Become the ocean." Goku screamed. It was a silent, strangled scream as the energy flooded his nervous system, washing away the fatigue of the tournament and replacing it with a terrifying, boundless energy that felt like it would never run out. He wasn't healing. He was evolving. And he was terrified that by the time this fever broke, the man named Son Goku would no longer exist. 3 days passed. 3 days where the sun rose and set over West City, but the lights in the Capsule Corp gravity chamber never dimmed. The sensors on the exterior panel had long since burned out, the delicate circuitry fused by the electromagnetic radiation pouring through the blast doors. Vegeta stood vigil. He hadn't slept, hadn't trained. He merely stood in the hallway, arms crossed, his key sense extended like a wire tripwire, waiting for the explosion. He could feel it, the slow, rhythmic thrumming from inside. It didn't feel like Kakarot. Kakarot's energy was a warm fire, chaotic but inviting. This felt like the cold pressure of the deep ocean. It was heavy. It was old. Inside, the gravity chamber was unrecognizable. Goku sat in the center of the room in a meditative lotus position. He was floating 3 feet off the ground, but there was no serenity in his posture. His muscles were pulled taut, veins bulging against his skin like steel cables. The floor beneath him was not just cracked, it was transmuted. The high-density tiles had turned into a swirling, glass-like substance, melted and reformed by the mere proximity of his aura. He opened his eyes. There was no white left in them. The sclera had darkened to a deep twilight charcoal, and the irises were vertical slits of piercing, luminescent emerald. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. The room looked small. The world looked fragile. He could hear the heartbeat of a bird 3 miles away. He could feel the tectonic plates of the earth grinding against each other deep below the crust. The sensory overload was absolute, yet he felt a strange, detached calm. Control, the whisper in his blood murmured. Order. Design. Quiet. Goku rasped. His voice had changed. It was deeper, layered with a subharmonic resonance that vibrated in the chest of anyone who heard it. He dropped to his feet. The landing was silent, yet the entire building shuddered. He looked at his hands. They were trembling, not from weakness, but from the containment of too much strength. He tried to summon his ki, to tap into Super Saiyan Blue, to find that familiar divine tranquility. He pushed. Instead of the calming blue wash of godly ki, a jagged spark of gold lightning erupted from his shoulder. It lashed out, striking the gravity machine's console. There was no explosion, no fire. The console simply vanished. It was erased from existence, leaving a perfectly smooth, spherical void in the wall. Goku stared at the empty space, horror dawning on his alien face. He hadn't blasted it. He hadn't burned it. He had willed it to not exist, and the energy had obeyed. "This isn't right," he whispered, clutching his wrist. "This isn't me." The blast doors hissed open, forced manually from the outside. Vegeta stood there, silhouetted by the hallway light. He took one look at Goku, at the dark eyes, the floating hair that shimmered between black and gold, the terrifying stillness of his presence, and his instincts screamed at him to run. "Kakarot," Vegeta said, his voice tight. "You've been in here for 72 hours. Bulma is threatening to dismantle the building if you don't come out and eat." Goku turned slowly. The movement was liquid, unnatural. Vegeta, the name hung in the air, heavy and formal. "Don't look at me like that," Vegeta snapped, stepping into the room, his pride overriding his fear. "And power down. You're leaking energy everywhere. It's suffocating. I can't," Goku admitted. The emerald slit eyes widened slightly, a flicker of the old Goku breaking through the divine mask. "It's not a form, Vegeta. I can't turn it off. It's just flowing. It's like a river that won't stop." Vegeta scowled. "Nonsense. You're a Saiyan. You control your power. It does not control you." He clenched his fists, powering up into Super Saiyan. The golden aura flared, bright and defiant. "If you can't shut it off, maybe you need to burn some of it off. Spar with me." It was a mistake. As Vegeta lunged, throwing a testing punch toward Goku's midsection, the air in the room crystallized. Goku didn't dodge. He didn't block. He simply looked at the incoming fist, and his body reacted without his consent. The dragon ki flared. A shockwave of emerald light exploded from Goku's skin. It didn't push Vegeta away. It slammed him into the floor with the force of a falling moon. The gravity in the room instantly spiked to a level that shattered the reinforced walls. Vegeta gasped, pinned to the ground, his Super Saiyan form flickering out instantly. He couldn't breathe. The pressure was immense, absolute. It was the authority of a god commanding a mortal to kneel. "Stop!" Goku shouted, but he wasn't talking to Vegeta. He was talking to the power inside him. He grabbed his own head, digging his fingers into his scalp. "Stop it! Let him go!" The pressure vanished as quickly as it had arrived. Vegeta gasped, coughing violently, rolling onto his side. He looked up at Goku with a mixture of fury and genuine terror. "What was that?" Vegeta wheezed, wiping blood from his lip. "That wasn't ki. That was judgment." Goku backed away, his back hitting the ruined wall. He looked at his hands, which were smoking with golden haze. He had almost crushed his best friend. Not with a technique, but with a thought. The whisper in his blood was louder now, purring with satisfaction. "The prince is weak. You are the apex. Why do you tolerate the weak? Get away from me," Goku stammered, his eyes darting around the room. The urge to destroy, to subjugate, to reshape the environment to his will was rising like bile. "Vegeta, get everyone away! I can't stay here!" "Where are you going?" Vegeta demanded, struggling to his feet. "Somewhere empty," Goku said. His voice was fracturing, the dual harmonics becoming more pronounced. "Somewhere I can't hurt anyone." He didn't use instant transmission. He didn't need to lock onto a key signature. He simply stepped forward, and space bent around him. The air rippled like water, and Goku stepped through reality, vanishing from the Capsule Corp lab. He reappeared in the asteroid belt, surrounded by silence and cold vacuum. But even here, the silence wasn't enough. He felt the planets of the solar system orbiting. He felt the gravitational pull of the sun. It was all so loud. The Dragon Key wanted to expand, to fill the vacuum. Goku drifted in the dark, curling into a ball. He was the strongest warrior in the universe, the savior of the multiverse, and he was cowering in the dark, afraid that if he sneezed, he might accidentally delete the moon. "Accept it," the voice commanded. "You are the chosen Saiyan. You are the bridge between the dust and the divine." "I don't want to be a bridge," Goku whispered into the void, a tear freezing instantly on his cheek. "I just want to fight." "Then fight," the voice replied, turning cold. "Fight me." The sacred world of the Kai is a realm detached from the mortal coil, a paradise of eternal twilight and indestructible grass, orbiting the very axis of the universe. It is a place designed to endure eons. But as Goku fell from the dimensional rift, crashing into the emerald turf, the sacred world shuddered as if it had been struck by a hammer. He didn't land. He impacted. A crater, miles wide, instantly scarred the landscape. But it wasn't a crater of destruction. Where the soil was displaced, it didn't burn, it bloomed. Crystalline flowers, jagged and glowing with a radioactive gold light, sprouted instantly from the upturned earth. The Dragon Key was not just destroying, it was rewriting the environment, forcing the passive matter of the Kai world to evolve into something harder, sharper, and more divine. Shin, the Supreme Kai, dropped his teacup. It shattered on the ground, the sound impossibly loud in the sudden silence. Beside him, Elder Kai stood up, his wrinkled face losing all traces of its usual grumpy demeanor. "That is an immortal?" Elder Kai whispered, his voice trembling. "Shin, do not approach him. That is not Son Goku." "But Ancestor, he's in pain!" Shin stammered, sensing the chaotic storm of energy swirling in the crater. "He is not in pain," Elder Kai barked, grabbing Shin's shoulder. "He is leaking. That energy. It's the breath of Zalama. It's the raw code of creation. If you touch it, you won't just die. You will be unmade." Down in the crater, Goku was on his hands and knees. He was retching, but nothing came up but wisps of golden smoke. His skin was burning, the orange of his gi bleaching white under the intensity of his own aura. The struggle for control was over. The dam had broken. The whisper was no longer a whisper. It was a roar. "Expand!" Goku threw his head back and screamed. A pillar of emerald light erupted from his body, piercing the purple sky of the Kai world. The clouds above swirled into a vortex, the very stars of the macrocosm seemingly dragged toward the beacon. And then the sky split. There was no portal, no swirling warp. The fabric of the dimension simply unzipped, revealing a white void. From that void descended a figure, calm, petite, and terrifyingly absolute. The Grand Priest. He floated down slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, his halo shimmering with a cold, detached blue light. He did not look at the Kais. His violet eyes were locked onto the raging inferno of gold and green in the crater. "Precarious," the Grand Priest said softly. His voice carried no anger, only the clinical detachment of a surgeon observing a tumor. The wish was granted, but the vessel was flawed. To think a mortal body could house the catalyst of Zalama, a miscalculation on the cosmic scale. Goku stopped screaming. He slowly turned his head. The dragon instinct had taken hold. His hair stood up not in the rigid spikes of Super Saiyan, but flowing and wild, as if underwater. It was a deep, shimmering black, frosted with tips of liquid gold. His eyes were no longer Saiyan eyes. They were the eyes of the dragon, vertical slits of glowing jade, devoid of pupil, devoid of mercy. "Priest," Goku said. The voice was dual-layered Goku's rough baritone overlaid with a metallic echoing rasp. "Son Goku," the Grand Priest acknowledged, drifting closer. "You are disrupting the equilibrium of the multiverse. That energy does not belong in a singular point. It must be returned to the ether. It is mine," Goku growled, clutching his chest. He was fighting the possession, trying to keep the dragon from answering, but the power was reacting to the threat. The Grand Priest represented order. The Dragon Key represented chaos. They were natural enemies. "It is killing you," the Grand Priest stated. He raised one hand, index finger pointing forward. "Allow me to excise it. It will be painless. You will cease to be, but the balance will be restored." It was a sentence of execution, delivered with a smile. Goku's survival instinct, the core of his Saiyan nature, snapped. He didn't think, he didn't plan, he exploded. The ground beneath Goku vaporized. He launched himself at the Grand Priest, moving faster than he had ever moved against Jiren. It wasn't speed, it was instantaneity. One moment he was on the ground. The next, his fist, wrapped in a swirling drill of emerald energy, was inches from the Grand Priest's face. Clang! The sound was not of flesh hitting flesh, but of a universe cracking. The Grand Priest had stopped the punch with a single finger. A shockwave of white and green energy flattened the forests of the sacred world for 1,000 miles. The Grand Priest's expression flickered. A microscopic frown creased his brow. He hadn't just blocked it. He had been pushed back an inch. "Interesting," the priest murmured. "The integration is deeper than I thought. You are not just carrying the power, you are weaponizing it." Goku didn't let up. He roared, spinning in the air, unleashing a barrage of kicks and blasts. Each strike was heavy with the weight of reality manipulation. When he missed, space didn't just break. It twisted. Gravity reversed. Time stuttered. The Grand Priest parried effortlessly, his movements a blur of angelic grace. But he was on the defensive. He created a cage of Kachin blocks around Goku. Goku roared, and the Kachin turned into water. He fired a blast of erasure energy. Goku swatted it aside, his hand coated in the golden dragon's aura, immune to the laws of destruction. "Enough," the Grand Priest said. The playfulness vanished. The Grand Priest's aura flared a blinding, holy white light that washed out the colors of the world. He extended both hands. Angelic decree. Stasis. The air around Goku solidified. Time froze. The atoms in Goku's body were commanded to stop vibrating. It was the ultimate seal, a technique used to subdue rogue gods of destruction. Goku froze mid-scream, suspended in the amber of frozen time. The Grand Priest exhaled, lowering his hands. A pity. He was a remarkable specimen. Crack! The Grand Priest's eyes widened. A hairline fracture appeared in the air in front of Goku's frozen chest. Then another, then another. The stasis was cracking like cheap glass. Inside the frozen prison, Goku's emerald eyes flared. The dragon did not accept stasis. The dragon was the source of the balls that could undo any wish, any law, any rule. With a sound like a thunderclap, the stasis shattered. Goku burst free, but he was different now. The struggle against the angel seal had forced the dragon key to adapt again. The golden aura condensed, forming a translucent armored avatar around him, a phantom dragon head roaring over his own. I want fade! Goku bellowed. He brought his hands together, not for a Kamehameha, but for something older. He cupped his hands, and a sphere of black and green light formed a negative star. The Grand Priest realized the danger instantly. You fool! If you release that much density here, you will punch a hole through the floor of the dimension. Goku fired. The beam didn't travel, it simply connected. It struck the Grand Priest's barrier, and the collision of the two supreme energies, angel and dragon, created a singularity. A black hole, swirling with gold lightning, tore open in the sky of the sacred world. It wasn't sucking in matter, it was sucking in narrative. Light, sound, time, everything was being pulled into the maw of the clash. The Grand Priest withstood the blast, his halo glowing furiously, but Goku was losing his tether. The recoil of the attack shattered his stance. He was thrown backward, not away from the singularity, but into it. Goku! Shin screamed, watching from the ruins of his temple. Goku tumbled into the rift, his body limbed in the emerald fire. He locked eyes with the Grand Priest one last time. There was no anger in the Saiyan's eyes anymore. Only a terrifying, blank acceptance. The rift snapped shut. The wind died. The gold light faded. The sacred world was silent again, save for the hum of the Grand Priest's barrier fading away. Shin fell to his knees. Is he dead? The Grand Priest smoothed his tunic. Though his hands were shaking slightly a tremor, he quickly hid. He looked at the spot where the sky had healed. No, the Grand Priest said, his voice quiet. Death is a function of this reality. He has gone somewhere else. Somewhere where the rules of life and death do not apply. The priest looked up at the stars, his expression unreadable. He has gone to the source. There was no up. There was no down. There was only gold. Goku did not wake up, because he wasn't sure he had ever been asleep. One moment, he was burning in the friction of the Grand Priest's singularity. The next, he was floating in a suspension of absolute terrifying clarity. The pain was gone. The crushing weight of the dragon key that had been liquefying his bones was gone. In fact, his body felt weightless, transparent, as if he were made of light rather than flesh. He tried to turn, but movement here was not physical, it was conceptual. He simply thought of a direction, and reality shifted around him. He was drifting in a sea of molten amber, enormous. Silent shapes floated in the distance, obsidian spheres the size of galaxies, pulsating with a slow, rhythmic light. They were the hearts of the Super Dragon Balls, the energetic cores stripped of their physical shells. Am I dead? Goku asked. His voice did not echo. The sound was absorbed instantly by the golden fluid surrounding him. Death is a mechanism of the lower dimensions, a voice replied. It came from everywhere and nowhere. It sounded like the grinding of tectonic plates and the gentle rustle of paper simultaneously. Here, there is only the draft and the final piece. You, Saiyan, are currently a rough sketch. The golden mist in front of Goku swirled, condensing into a shape. It did not take the form of the colossal Super Shenron. Instead, the light coalesced into a humanoid silhouette, cloaked in robes that seemed to be woven from the fabric of nebulae. The figure had no face, only a pair of burning, vertical emerald slits where eyes should be. Goku floated upright, his instincts screaming that he was in the presence of something that made Beerus look like a house cat. Who are you? I have been called many names by the transient things that live in the universes, the figure said, drifting closer. Zalama, the dragon god, the architect. But names are limitations. I am the will that precedes the wish. Goku clenched his fists, expecting a fight, but his hands felt soft, uncalloused. You're the one who made the Super Dragon Balls! I am, Zalama replied. The figure circled Goku, examining him like a sculptor inspecting a flawed block of marble. And you are the anomaly, the crack in the vase. My power was designed to facilitate the desires of the gods, to rewrite the tapestry of reality upon command. It was never intended to be housed within a biological engine, especially not one as crude as a Saiyan. Crude? Goku bristled, his pride flaring. I've fought gods! I've broken my limits 1,000 times! Exactly, Zalama said, stopping directly in front of Goku. The emerald eyes bored into his soul. That is why you survived! Do you know why the Dragon Key did not vaporize you instantly, Son Goku? Goku stayed silent. Because Saiyans are the parasites of potential, Zalama stated, his tone devoid of insult, purely analytical. Your biology is unique in the multiverse. You do not have a ceiling. When you break, you do not shatter. You rebuild. You adapt. You are the only creatures in existence whose definition of self is fluid, infinite adaptability. Zalama raised a hand, and the golden void around them rippled. Images appeared in the mist: Goku fighting Frieza, Goku fighting Cell, Goku achieving Super Saiyan God, Goku mastering Ultra Instinct. I watched you, Zalama continued. The Grand Priest believes order is the highest state of being. The angels seek neutrality. But you seek evolution. That is the nature of the dragon. To expand, to grow, to become more than what was defined. So, Goku looked at his hands, seeing the faint glimmer of gold under his skin. You're saying I can control this? That I can use this power? No, Zalama said sharply. The golden sea darkened, turning a turbulent, stormy bronze. You cannot use this power. You are thinking like a warrior. A warrior uses a weapon. A warrior uses a technique. This is not a technique. This is authority. The figure leaned in, the pressure of his presence forcing Goku to float backward. To wield the dragon, you must stop fighting it. You have spent 3 days battling the energy in your veins, trying to suppress it, trying to mold it into a form like your Super Saiyan. That is why you are dying. You are trying to put the ocean into a cup. Then what do I do? Goku shouted, frustration bubbling up. If I don't fight it, it'll consume me. It almost killed Vegeta. It almost destroyed the Kai world. It consumes you because you remain separate from it, Zalama answered. You cling to Son Goku. You cling to the idea that you are a mortal who fights battles. You must let that die. You must surrender the need for the battle and accept the burden of the outcome. Zalama extended a hand. A sphere of pure, concentrated emerald energy, a miniature sun hovered above his palm. The dragon does not fight, Zalama whispered. The dragon commands. The dragon does not dodge. The dragon dictates where the attack is allowed to be. Ultra Instinct was the mastery of the body. Dragon Instinct is the mastery of the will. He pushed the sphere toward Goku. Accept it. Not as a power-up, not as a transformation to win a tournament. Accept it as your new nature. Become the Avatar. But know this, Saiyan. If you take this, you will never be just a fighter again. You will be a singularity. The thrill of the close match, the joy of the even struggle. Those will be memories. A dragon does not struggle against a mouse. Goku stared at the emerald sun. The heat radiating from it was terrifying. It promised absolute power, but it also promised a terrifying loneliness. If he took this, the gap between him and Vegeta, between him and everyone, would become a canyon that could never be bridged. He thought of the Grand Priest's cold dismissal. He thought of the threat looming over the universe, the imbalances, the ancient enemies rising from the dark. If he stayed as he was, he would eventually lose. If he evolved, he might lose himself. Goku closed his eyes. He thought of Chi-Chi. He thought of Gohan. He thought of the smile on Pan's face. I don't fight just for the thrill, Goku said softly. I fight to protect, and if the only way to protect them is to become something else, then he'll do it. He didn't reach for the sphere. He stepped into it. The moment his chest touched the emerald light, the golden void screamed. Goku's body dissolved. For an eternity, he was nothing but consciousness scattered across the golden sea. He felt the birth of stars. He felt the cold death of galaxies. He felt the intricate, mathematical beauty of the multiverse's design. He felt the connection to every Super Dragon Ball across universes 6 and 7. He was being reassembled. His bones were knitted together, not with calcium, but with condensed reality. His key pathways were widened, reinforced with the indestructible magic of the Dragon God. The frantic, burning heat of the infection was replaced by a cool, heavy thrum of absolute dominion. The silhouette of Zalama watched the reconstruction, nodding slowly. "The vessel is forged," Zalama intoned. "The warrior is dead. The guardian is born." The golden sea began to swirl, draining away into a vortex beneath Goku's reforming feet. The physics of the mortal realm were calling him back. There was a rupture in Universe 7, a consequence of his departure that needed to be filled. Goku opened his eyes. The vertical pupils narrowed. He didn't just see the golden void anymore. He saw the path back. He saw the Grand Priest waiting. He saw the fear in his friends' hearts. He didn't scream. He didn't power up. He simply exhaled, and the golden void shattered like a mirror. The sacred world of the Kai was in ruins. The singularity Goku had fallen into had sealed, but the atmospheric damage remained. The sky was a bruised purple, scarred by streaks of static electricity. The Grand Priest had not left. He hovered above the crater, his face uncharacteristically grim. Around him, Whis, Vados, and the other angels had gathered, summoned by the disturbance in the cosmic hierarchy. Even the Omni-Kings had arrived, floating in their throne, looking down with wide, confused eyes. "Where is Goku?" Zeno asked, his voice small. "Did he go bye-bye?" "He has been removed from the equation, sire," the Grand Priest said, bowing slightly. His existence became unstable. It was necessary to let the void claim him. Vegeta, who had arrived via Whis transport cube just moments before the singularity collapsed, stood on the edge of the ruin. He was trembling not with fear, but with a rage so profound it threatened to trigger a transformation of its own. "You threw him away!" Vegeta spat, glaring up at the Grand Priest. "After everything he did for the multiverse. You discarded him like a broken toy. He was dangerous, Vegeta," Whis said softly, placing a hand on the prince's shoulder. The energy was going to destroy him and everything around him. "Perhaps this is mercy." "Mercy?" Vegeta knocked Whis' hand away. "Kakarot doesn't want mercy. He wants a chance." Suddenly, the air grew heavy. It wasn't the heaviness of gravity or key pressure. It was a heaviness of significance. The wind stopped blowing. The static lightning in the sky froze in place. The birds in the distance stopped singing. Even the Grand Priest stiffened, his head snapping up toward the zenith of the sky. A sound permeated the sacred world, a low, resonant hum, like a cello string roughly plucked in an empty cathedral. Doom! The fabric of reality directly above the Grand Priest didn't tear, it melted. A hole of pure, dripping gold opened in the sky, turning the purple clouds into swirling auroras of emerald and amber. From the molten light, a footstep echoed. Goku stepped out of the sky as if walking down an invisible staircase. He was changed. His gi was restored, but the orange was deeper, almost a burnt sunset hue, and the blue undershirt had turned black. His hair was the most striking change. It retained the shape of his base form, but it was wilder, flowing as if caught in an underwater current, and it was jet black with tips that shimmered like solid gold. But it was the aura that made the angels step back. It wasn't a flame. It was a crystalline structure. Jagged shards of emerald light orbited him slowly, clicking into place like the gears of a clock. Behind him, a faint, translucent wheel of golden light hovered, similar to a halo but far more ancient, a symbol of the Super Dragon. "Goku," Krillin whispered, watching from the sidelines. Goku didn't look at his friends. He looked at the Grand Priest. His face was calm, stripped of its usual goofiness, stripped of the battle lust. It was the face of a king who had returned to find strangers in his throne room. "You tried to erase me," Goku said. His voice was no longer dual-layered. It was singular, resonant, and impossibly clear. It sounded like truth. I attempted to preserve the balance. The Grand Priest replied, his eyes narrowing. He adopted a combat stance, something no one had seen in eons. You have returned, and you have fully integrated the anomaly. This is a violation of the divine law. Laws change, Goku said. He took another step down. The Grand Priest didn't wait. He moved. The Grand Priest appeared instantly in front of Goku. A palm thrust aimed at Goku's chest, a move that would shut down the nervous system of any mortal or god. Goku didn't dodge. He didn't block. He looked at the hand. Halt. The word wasn't a request. It was a command to reality. The Grand Priest froze. Not from a technique, but because the space around him refused to allow him to move. The air turned to adamantium. The kinetic energy of his thrust was simply negated. The Grand Priest's eyes widened in genuine shock. You are manipulating the vector of the attack. I'm not manipulating it, Goku said, floating past the angel. I'm deciding it doesn't happen. Goku landed on the grass. The shards of emerald light around him flared, expanding into a massive, ghostly dragon head that roared silently, blowing the other angels back with a wind of pure pressure. Attack him, the Grand Priest ordered, breaking free of the hold with a massive surge of angelic power. He is a threat to the Zenos. 3 angels, Mojito, Cuss, and Korn, lunged at Goku, their staffs glowing with eradication energy. It was a coordinated assault that could have dismantled a universe. Goku stood his ground. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, feeling the infinite adaptability surging through the dragon ki. He didn't feel fear. He felt the blueprint of their attacks before they even launched them. He opened his eyes. The vertical pupils glowed. Goku moved. He was a blur of gold and black. He caught Mojito's staff with 2 fingers, spun, and kicked Cuss with a shockwave that sent her crashing through a mountain range. Korn tried to bind him with temporal magic, but Goku simply walked through it, the magic shattering like glass against his aura. He didn't strike to kill. He struck to dominate. Every punch carried the weight of a wish. Every kick rewrote the physics of the impact. He grabbed Mojito by the collar and tossed him aside like a rag doll. He turned to face the Grand Priest, who was now charging a sphere of white eradication energy, the same energy used to wipe out timelines. It ends now, Saiyan! The Grand Priest shouted, hurling the sphere. Goku watched the white death approaching. He raised his right hand, palm open. He didn't fire a blast. He didn't scream. He simply imposed his will upon the energy. Return! The white sphere stopped inches from Goku's palm. It vibrated, turned gray, then green, then gold. Goku flicked his wrist. The blast reversed, shooting back at the Grand Priest with double the speed. The High Angel was forced to cross his arms, taking the impact of his own attack. An explosion of light engulfed the sky, shaking the foundation of the world of void. When the smoke cleared, the Grand Priest was still standing, but his tunic was scorched, and he was breathing heavily. He looked at his hands, then at Goku. There was no more arrogance, only calculation. Goku lowered his hand. The crystalline aura retracted, humming softly against his skin. He looked up at the Omni Kings, who were clapping, delighted by the light show. I'm not here to fight you, Goku said, his voice projecting across the battlefield. And I'm not here to break the law, but the wish was made. I am the result. You can't erase me, and you can't beat me. He turned to the Grand Priest. I am the guardian of the wish now. I answer to the balance, same as you, but I do it my way. The Grand Priest straightened up, dusting off his shoulder. He looked at Whis, then back at Goku. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke a galaxy, but the angel slowly lowered his guard. He recognized the signature. It wasn't just power anymore. It was authority. To fight Goku now would be to fight a fundamental aspect of reality. It would be a civil war between order and creation. Very well, the Grand Priest said, his voice cool once more. We shall observe this new development. But know this, Son Goku. You have stepped out of the cycle of mortals. You are alone now. Goku looked over at Vegeta. The prince was staring at him, not with jealousy, but with a complex mix of awe and distance. Vegeta knew it too. The rival he knew was gone. Something greater and more terrible had taken his place. Goku offered a small, sad smile, the first human expression he had shown since returning. "I know," Goku said. He looked up at the golden rift still fading in the sky. The stars burned quietly, as if remembering his will. The fight was over. The legend had begun.